This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, The Deadly Years, Part 2.
Hello, welcome to Watchers of Tomorrow, the sci-fi review and critique show that's totally not just an excuse to get a super buff man almost naked on a shuttlecraft. My name is Gep, and I'm joined as always by my friend and co-host Dr. Isix.
Hi.
And this week we've got it's another one of those ones where the name is weird, but
It's weird,
people remember it.
Yeah, it is kind of apt in terms of like actually connecting to the episode, but still pretty weird.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this last time. I feel like it connects to the episode in a way that only makes sense after you know the twist of the episode, which is a weird thing to put in the title.
Yes. Episode. Oh, spoilers.
This is continuing our trend of remakes of original series plot lines.
Indeed. Where we're going to be taking an idea here, twist up a few things here, and then kind of redo it. See what happens.
Yes. So specifically, we found a ship where everyone has inexplicably aged themselves to death.
Oh no, Captain Kirk! He didn't get himself fixed after that one episode.
Yeah. This is the episode called Unnatural Selection. You see what I did there? See what they did? It's unnatural, but it's like natural selection, but
yeah, it's Yes, it's not doing it the natural way.
Yeah.
Yeah, which actually I believe Darwin talked about in his famous works there.
Well, that's how you figured it out, because they were doing pigeon breeding.
Exactly. So it's like, what if nature does this just kind of like because?
Yeah. Like, we can do that, so wouldn't it happen just sort of naturally by itself?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that make sense?
Just following along the logic here, and not everything comes together.
No. Man's super special, and man can do things that nature can't. How dare you? How dare you make us not super special? This episode has two writers. They worked kind of as a team. We have John Mason and Mike Gray. They worked together on several documentaries, including American Revolution 2 and the pilot for the Rocket. The Rocket Pilots.
Rocket Pilots.
Apparently is the name of the thing. Gray also created the TV series Starman. And is a staff writer for this season.
Which I've not seen Starman, but cool.
Yeah, I don't know Starman. What is Starman?
It's a 1986 to 87. An alien returns to Earth years after an earlier visit to reunite with his Earth's son, and together they search for the alien's human wife.
Oh, cool. The Starman. Also a David Bowie song.
Yes.
Which came out 10 years before that, so they probably copied it.
Yes. I think there's also a movie called Starman, but I'm not sure if it has any connection.
Yeah, I do know. It's not well received on the Rotten Tomatoes, but it did have Jeff Bridges in it.
Hooray!
Which is interesting, considering we're just talking about Marvel movies.
It's all coming together, man.
Anyway, yeah, David Bowie and Starman. It's nothing to do with this.
But what if we were reviewing Starman instead? How would we approach it?
I have no idea, because I don't know what it is. We'd probably start singing badly, knowing us.
Ground control to Major Tom.
That's a different song.
I know, but I don't know the Starman song very well.
He's the Starman doing something I can't remember. I think he's reaching for the stars. I think he's a Starman reaching for the stars, but...
well, maybe the...
Okay, now I just gotta...
Yes.
Where are we? Where's my lyrics? Oh no, he's waiting in the sky.
He's waiting in the sky. Oh, that makes more sense, actually, because, he's coming down from the sky to Earth, maybe.
There we go. He's the Starman waiting in the sky. He told us not to blow it. Oh no.
I think we did. Crap.
Yeah.
Captain, we're doomed.
I don't know if I've heard this whole song.
The intergalactic community is upset with us.
Yeah, I mean, well, they might be. It's hard to say. Do they just, like, you fucked up your own planet, so stay here? Or
Yeah, we'll not share the secrets of immortality or FTL travel with you. Ha!
All right, so we have several guest stars. Once we get around to guest stars, we've got Patricia Smith plays Dr. Sarah Kingsley. She has been acting for a very long time. One of her earliest appearances was on the 1953 Kraft Television Theater. So her acting career predates commercials.
Yes. There's also the Campbell Summer Soundstage, the Motorola Television Hour, Phil Cole Television Playhouse, and so on.
Yeah. She had a lot of minor roles in the 60s and 70s and things like Gunsmoke, Twilight Zone, The Fugitive, all those sorts of things.
It's on Quincy.
Continued acting a lot. Continued acting most of the way through.
Yes, including Highway to Heaven, The Bold and the Beautiful, Trapper John, M.D.
Yeah, I never heard of half of those. But
well, Trapper John, M.D. was a sequel to MASH.
Was it?
Yeah.
Huh.
Because, Trapper
Wonder
John, the
why.
character from MASH. Yeah.
Only sort of.
Oh.
I haven't seen MASH in a long time. Was it about war trauma? Like he comes back and can't get over his PTSD?
I've never seen it myself, so...
Anyway, yeah. Okay, and I don't know. I just thought the guy deserved a credit. We have George Baxter, who plays David, who doesn't get to talk.
Yep.
But he does sit around shirtless for quite a while.
I'm going to show off my pecs today.
But he was in a lot of uncredited background stuff. He was in Good Will Hunting and Thriller Resurrection. And now he lives in Seattle with his husband, which I just thought was cool.
Nice. I think the only other, actual acting credit he gets is for Emerald Knights, which I've never heard of.
So, in fact, yes, anyone who looks that good and is that buff is gay.
Cool.
Just so we all are on the same page.
The power of the pecs. They compel you.
And also, finally, you've been waiting for this. You've been waiting for this for 2 seasons.
Yep. It's time.
Cole Meany is finally on
Yes.
as Miles O'Brien, because this is the first episode where O'Brien gets a name.
Yes, he's finally a real person. Hooray!
Before this, he was always Transporter Chief.
Mm-hmm. Or like, not even that, just like guy.
Yeah. I saw interviews with Cole Meany where he said they didn't tell him that his character was becoming this kind of regular. He just kept getting called back for Transporter Chief or Background Ensign or whatever. And then he comes in one day, and all of a sudden, all of his lines have an actual name next to them.
It's like, wow, surprise. So, if for some reason you're not familiar with Cole Meany in terms of his Star Trek credits, he ends up being in a bunch more episodes of The Next Generation. In fact, he's in 52 episodes in total. Which is, less than a third of the number of appearances he has in Deep Space Nine, with 173 episodes. So, yeah, he's a regular throughout, this series and the next. So,
Yeah, series regular on Next Gen with continuing guest appearances, including his entire story arc.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the main secondary characters. Then, of course, becomes a main character on DS9.
Which I do kind of like that when there's a second series, that continues on from, a first series, and they kind of promote someone from the first series to be on the new series that was like a background character, because it builds that verisimilitude sort of stuff there, and I like it.
Yeah, it was nice continuity.
Yeah. Also, Cole Meany was in Hell on Wheels for as a regular as well as Thomas Doc Durant for 52 episodes, and kind of the biggest thing he was doing post Star Trek. But he's been in a few other things as a regular for bits and pieces here. So, yeah,
he's a reoccurring villain in Stargate Atlantis. Mm-hmm. I love whenever he shows up there. That was always fun.
Yes. The Chennai. It's like, hey, I'm going to be like a bad guy here. He's also in Tolkien. Huh. Didn't know they had a movie about Tolkien.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Maybe he uses his real accent. Okay, we've got some story to get to.
Yes.
Apparently, I'm pretty sure there was a story that happened.
Yes, I will say that the story here is pretty, I guess, bare bones, but there is actually some good mood at times here. Which
it's a good episode overall, and it gives Pulaski something to do, which they usually don't, which is kind of nice. She's a good actor.
So, we got Pulaski doing stuff and interacting and having character moments, and it's great.
So, the Enterprise is doing something super vital and important that doesn't matter. Picard asks Troy to his office to talk about Pulaski because he has some doubts about this character that the writers don't know what to do with, but Troy thinks she's cool. So, great.
Yeah, she's kind of a badass. Don't worry about it, Picard. It's like, oh, okay.
Before we can get into depth on anything that's happening, we receive a distress call from the USS Lantry, who reports that their crew is dying, and then the signal cuts off. So that's not a good sign, probably.
Nope. So we either got themselves stuck in an anomaly of some sort, or they're facing down like a space plague.
So they catch up with the Lantry, which is just flying aimlessly through space. They perform a computer override to take control and turn its engines off and get a remote view of the bridge where everyone has died from extreme old age.
So it wasn't an anomaly this time. Probably.
There seemed to be no reason for this. One of the officers was reported as having a strain of alien flu. But it's usually a completely harmless virus that humans just get over in a couple days.
That couldn't have done all this. Wait, maybe it was an anomaly then.
They play the last log entry where the captain is just talking about how everyone's dying. They also find that the Landry had stopped at Darwin Station, which is a genetic research facility, and they decide to at least give them a warning in case they need to quarantine, whatever those on the ship. It might have spread.
Yes. So, we should probably let them know that, if there's like some weird virus around, then perhaps, you should watch out for that.
So they activate the quarantine beacons on the ship, which is just like, hey, stay away, deadly virus.
Yep, and hopefully everyone has, universal translators so that they can pay attention to that.
This is a plague ship. Go away.
Danger, danger.
They contact Dr. Kingsley, who's impressed by Pulaski because she wrote about virology a bit ago. Kingsley's a bit curt, but she's also been infected by the aging sickness because she looks to be about 60 years old at 35.
Whoops. That's... Well, I guess you could have gotten pulled in the same anomaly that the spaceship did. That clearly happened, right?
Yeah. Like the whole station went through whatever thingy. Her chief concern is that she wants to get the children off of the station because they need to be kept safe as children, and they've also been in complete isolation since before the outbreak started, so they should be completely fine and uninfected.
Oh, that's convenient. So you just normally keep your kids in, like, a box?
Yeah, kid in a box.
Yeah, all right.
They have a meeting about what to do. No one wants to make contact with the station because they don't know how this thing spreads. Troy thinks that Kingsley believes the children are safe, but she's also not telling them the entire truth, so they should probably be careful. Pulaski thinks they should bring one of the kids on board to do something. Should do something with the kid. I can't really explain. But, we should definitely bring them on board for some reason.
Yeah, analysis to, see if they have been infected, and maybe, if they haven't, maybe they have some sort of natural immunity that, that'd be cool.
So they set up a containment field, and they plan to beam one of the kids aboard in styrolite. It's a fancy thing that puts them in suspended animation and is just a weird shell.
Yeah, it's like putting your kids in styrofoam now, not just a box. Huh.
Yeah, it's the newest thing. It's the greatest. It's the greatest innovation in childcare.
Just put your kids in storage until they're old enough to...
I read this book by Dr. Spock, who says kids are annoying and you should put them in suspended animation.
Mr. Spock disagreed with this, but...
It is only logical that since children go through a lot of emotional harm and trauma, it's better to sleep through the whole thing.
I think I've read some stories that sort of have that vibe. Like, they hook kids up to learning machines when they're, real young, and so they just, dream all their education, and then they wake up and they're, 18. So it's like, hooray!
Yeah.
I have no emotional contact with anyone ever, and now I'm expected to survive in society. but I have knowledge about the world.
So O'Brien sets up the transporter to beam in the styrolite a few milliseconds before they beam in the kids, so no one can be infected, and they're in a containment zone in sickbay, etc., etc. So they beam in the child, who is a super buff 25-year-old.
Yep. So Worf, aptly says it's a trick.
It's a trap.
Yeah. Deception.
Pulaski examines the child, who is perfect, probably genetically engineered, the future of humanity, definitely telepathic, immune system so advanced that it can't possibly get sick. Pulaski wants to open him up. Like, oh my god, we've got to get this guy out of the suspended animation. Look how perfect his pecs are. I mean, look how perfect his genetics are.
Yeah. So I want to inspect all of that real closely here without the styrolite in the way. Can I do that, Captain?
Picard thinks it's too risky to expose the ship to an unknown deadly disease,
Yeah. So
maybe just because the kid's cool, we shouldn't open him up right here.
Mm-hmm.
Pulaski goes, I'm right, though, Captain.
Sure you are, but I'm also the captain, so no.
They get into conflict. They don't get along. This is the character dynamic we're setting up for this episode, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
She's also 100% and completely provably in the wrong.
Yep.
In this situation. Not just because we know what will happen later, but because you have absolutely no way to know whether this kid is carrying an infection, and it's stupid to expose the entire ship to it unnecessarily.
Indeed. Just because you're immune to it doesn't mean you can't be a carrier.
Yeah, it is a legitimately stupid quarantine move, and Picard is 100% right to call her out on it. And we're supposed to be like, oh, look, strong personalities clashing.
Maybe Pulaski knows that her, her monthly review is in the works right now, and so she's like, I need to be assertive so the captain thinks I'm assertive.
Yeah. I also do question, though. So you're on a very, very large, city-sized spaceship. This thing is about half the size of Manhattan.
I don't think it's quite that large, but it's a fairly large building, I'd say.
Oh yeah, I'm confusing it with the Star Destroyers.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty huge. I think I saw a thing it takes up a decent chunk of downtown. It's not just one skyscraper.
Yeah, as I said, it's a fairly large building.
This is a huge frickin' ship. It's meant to go into space. Why is every single part of it so completely interconnected that if you have an infection happen in sickbay, it spreads across the entire ship in 10 minutes?
Because you have to have only one system that is life support. Otherwise, we can't, complain about life support going down.
You would think that you might want sickbay, the place where you keep all of the sick people, to possibly be its own completely isolated environment.
Indeed. So isolated that if you were to beam the entire sickbay into space, it would be able to survive on its own for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, that'd be great. You could be we need the sickbay to be completely quarantined, detach it from the ship and keep it tethered.
Yes. So we can keep all the sick people in there, and the rest of us don't have to worry about that until we get sick, too. Oh, no.
Anyway, Kingsley tells Pulaski that they have to save the children. This is a phrase that when old white women say it, it gives me just hives.
Yeah. Save the children from not dying like you are right now. What?
So everyone thinks the kids will die as soon as the adults in the station do, but they're also 25-year-old super children.
Yes.
So they're probably capable of taking care of themselves.
Yes, they have all sorts of crazy powers, which we haven't even seen all of them yet, and they're supposed to be super intelligent too. So if they could use a replicator, they can probably last for a good long while.
Yeah. Pulaski says she will do what she can. She consults with the Forge to try to find a completely fail-safe way to get the children out and prove they're harmless. There's nowhere on the ship that can be sealed off with absolute certainty, which seems like a dumb way to design ship.
Mm-hmm.
You probably should have that.
Yep. Let's put it on the next big upgrade here.
So what they decide to do is to go to something that has a completely independent environment like shuttlecraft.
So, basically what we just mentioned, that would be a good idea.
So Pulaski takes this to Picard, who, despite his reservations, sees she's trying to work within his boundaries, so lets her take the child out in a shuttle. She requires Data, who can't get sick, to pilot the thing, And then once they're off the ship, they beam the child aboard.
All right, so he's here. It's Data. Are you immune to the power of the Pecs?
Apparently, Data is immune to the Pec power. Pulaski's not.
Yes.
So Pulaski uses a thingy, and it melts away the styrolite coating. And the child gets up and stares at her, which is apparently telepathic communication. My first guess is that this child communicates telepathically so that he gets the scale rate for a background actor and not a speaking actor.
Yep. This person looks like they have something to say, but they can't because they're an extra.
Well, he also starts to examine him, but then suddenly gets arthritis.
Well, that's inconvenient, but she is kind of up there in years. But wait a moment, didn't they mention earlier that one of the first signs was arthritis?
Yeah, it's like the children carry the disease without being affected by it.
This seems like a terrible
thing. What do you
know? Yeah. So, sorry, kid, but you're now going to be doomed to never encounter anyone else ever again. Sorry.
So they beam the kid back to the station, and they decide they may as well take the shuttle to the station as well, because Data can't get sick, and Pulaski's got to be in quarantine, so...
Well, Data at least can't get sick in the same way. Though, he has gotten that crazy drunk virus thing before. But
I have pores. Humans have pores.
If you prick me, do I not bleed, motor oil?
So they need to find a way to get Pulaski and Data back. Data's fine. He's immune. They can send him through the scrubber and it'll be great.
Yes.
But they can't get Pulaski back on board. Normally, the transporter can filter out diseases, but they don't know how this one is spread, so they can't necessarily count on that happening.
Mm-hmm. So with Data, you can say, there's no life forms at all or any biological material, so he's cool. But, Pulaski, well, if you do that, you just don't beam up anything.
Yeah, just scrub anything organic with Data and it's fine.
Yes.
We assume. We don't know how Data functions, even a little. O'Brien has an idea. If they can get Pulaski's old transporter pattern and compare it with her new pattern, then they can filter out anything that's different, and that would be the disease.
Mm-hmm.
However, Pulaski's never even once used the transporter.
So, her borrowed character trait from Koi is now, causing her a mischief, so that's a problem.
Yep. So they decide to contact her last ship, the USS Repulse, in hopes that they have it, and in the meantime, they need to modify the transporter so that this can work. So O'Brien starts working to save the day.
So, O'Brien, can you work up a Deus Ex Machina to save everybody? Well, just don't make it a habit, okay?
So on the station, Data and Pulaski go to see the children that Kingsley's so proud of. She's flabbergasted that they could have carried the disease because they're so resistant to disease. They're perfect in every way. They're not genetically engineered. No, they're not engineered. Don't even think about that. That's illegal. We just created them.
Yes, we created them whole cloth out of our replicator. Yeah, we replicated these kids.
And their immune system is so perfect that it's not passive like our immune systems that wait for something to come inside of our body and fight it off. Theirs is actively aggressive. It seeks out and destroys diseases around them before they even get to the body.
So basically, they're constantly secreting some sort of antibody sort of thing that goes out and locates viruses and bacteria and destroys them. And that sounds like a horrible idea, actually, when you think about it, because what's it to keep it from looking at a bacteria, cell there and like a human cell and being like, these are the same thing?
Seems like a very bad idea.
Yeah.
Also, apparently it alters viral DNA to make it neutral somehow. Prevent it from being a virus anymore.
Like, you're no longer a
And
virus.
Pulaski goes, wait a minute. What if they altered the flu that one guy had? And then they look at a model and goes like, look, the way that their immune system alters the flu DNA turns it into this horrible aging virus.
That's a problem. So we're getting ourselves infected with a thing that messes with our genes now and causes us to age. And this is all kind of weird, but, Star Trek plots.
So their super advanced children created the aging plague.
These children
They're not just carriers.
Yeah, they're out to get us. These kids these days, they're trying to murder everyone.
So that's great. Now they have nothing to do because it's DNA damage. Also, they find Pulaski's old ship, and it doesn't have her transporter records either because she does everywhere by shuttlecraft. For years, apparently.
Yes.
She also demanded to be transferred to the Enterprise because she wanted to work with Picard. He's like, oh, she does like me.
Yeah.
Cool.
She just, butts head with me constantly, so,
So, Pulaski reports back that she can never leave the station, and the children can't leave the station. They probably shouldn't have meddled with natural evolution. Science is bad. We don't know what we're doing. Did we think we were gods, etc., etc. Yeah.
We shouldn't have meddled in God's domain.
Data returns to the Enterprise. Picard starts reasoning out the transporter problem. They don't have Pulaski's pattern, but what if they could get her DNA? And then use the DNA to modify the pattern. Yeah. They try to find her original DNA, but, all the records are caught up in military bureaucracy. They haven't been sent to the ship yet, So Riker and Data rush to recorders to find something that might have her DNA on it, but she is, particularly clean. There's not even a skin cell anywhere in the quarters.
Well, we don't really know how, quarters on the Enterprise, how they clean them generally. There might be, a weird field that activates and, just eliminates everything off of various surfaces when there's no one in the room or something, for all we know. But, that's stuff that's not being established here or anywhere, so,
Well, they do say at one point that the ship cleans itself.
Exactly. But how, we don't know.
Yeah. So they eventually find a hairbrush. The hairbrush has a hair follicle on it, so they have DNA.
Yeah, it's a start.
So they inform Pulaski to be ready. They also use the same thing to save the others if this works. Of course, it's never been tried before, except for all those times they did it in original series.
Yep. I guess O'Brien just hasn't read all the reports about Kirk and his shenanigans. So
they get the transporter ready. She beams on board. First, she still looks all old and whatever, but then she rapidly de-ages and becomes solid. Picard greets her warmly because they like each other now. Hooray.
Hooray! So we've had character evolution and de-aging at the same time.
They fixed everyone else off screen. And they decide that they're just going to rehouse the plague children somewhere and let them live off in isolation.
Yeah, so sorry kids, but you can't interact with the larger universe because you'll kill everybody. So, that sucks. Don't start a civilization, please.
And they return to the Landry and destroy it with torpedoes.
Which is, I guess they do kind of make a moment of it where everyone's kind of standing up there in respect and it's like, sorry, but we're blowing you up, and goodbye everyone who died on the ship, and
yep.
And Worf, it's time for you to do your favorite thing, and he's like, okay.
They don't even consider could we scrub the virus? Could we clean it? Could we expose the entire ship to space and then send it through one of those scrubby things that destroys all organic matter?
Yes.
And salvage a big expensive ship.
Slowly, beam it apart piece by piece until, there's no biological matter attached to it at all, and there you go.
I mean, if you think about it, they're putting a lot of stock in the fact that blowing up is going to destroy this thing. What if this thing just becomes dormant when exposed to space and floats around and eventually just lands on some random planet?
Yeah, or heck, even, just lands on the Enterprise, get a weird, lesion of infection or something like that on the surface of the ship that causes problems, and everyone's like, "What's up with this? We don't know. It's eating away at the hull. This is going to cause problems."
Oh yeah, something that could be a thing that might pop up later.
Yeah, so it's maybe something to be thinking about here, guys. Come on.
Yeah. Hey, unnatural selection. That was the thing.
Yep. Now, I think we should probably point out that at this point, the outright ban in this era, at least, of genetic tinkering hasn't really been established. So this being a thing that is just happening on this planet is, I guess, that no one's really too sussed about it.
Yeah, they hadn't really talked about it. They aren't angry. They're not fully continuing the continuity yet, you know. But still, seems like maybe not the greatest idea.
Yeah. It can always hand wave it away that technically this is Federation citizens, but this is on a non-Federation outpost or something like that, so they can get away with stuff here. Maybe.
Yeah, it's just weird scientists, I guess.
I guess they wanted to make the perfect beings, and didn't really think about one, how to do it right, and two, if they really should. But they kind of maybe screwed up on both fronts, really. So meh. So I should probably point out I watched the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 the other day, and the main bad guy there kind of smells like these research scientists. But he's a lot more punchable overall, so there's maybe not quite apt full congruency here, but yeah.
He smells like these scientists.
Well, he also wants quote to make the perfect beings or societies and things like that, and is doing genetic tinkering and all that sort of jazz, and engineering the ideal beings for the new world he's making.
Yeah, that's just a constant frickin' plot point somewhere.
Yeah.
Everyone always wants to do that.
And
we're going to create perfect beings. Look at us go.
Yeah. And I'd say that Guardians of the Galaxy kind of, drew some big circles around why this is a horrific sort of mentality overall. Probably a little better than this episode did, but it was kind of, at least hinted in this episode.
I think it's kind of interesting that this episode does do something a little bit different than we've seen in older Star Trek, or the reason that the eugenics is outlawed in this century. Any of the other things. A lot of sci-fi does this. If you create the perfect human, they will become mad with power.
Yeah.
And try to kill everyone. And that's why you shouldn't do that.
But here, it's no, they're not mad with power. They actually seem pretty chill, but they are actually physically incompatible with everyone else in a very active way.
Well, I think what's kind of interesting is how random and unexpected it is. They do a weird thing with it, but it's admitting that the main problem that we have with genetic engineering, eugenics, any of these ideas that we have for we could improve humanity as a species with science, is how randomly interconnected biology is. You can't really have fully predictable outcomes.
Exactly.
So this one created a super virus so that it works with the show. But it's still just, we had no idea this was going to happen. We had no way to predict that this particular set of interactions would lead to this particular thing, because you just can't really predict biology on that level.
Indeed. Biology is a very large vector space of possibilities that it is impossible to account for every possibility that could come up. So, don't even try, really.
That's one of the main problems that we have with current research and science around genetic engineering and gene altering. We can do research on genetics, and we've got predictive stuff and these stupid not really AI neural network models trying to work out stuff now. But usually you can say something like, here's a clump of genes, and in people who have this clump of genes in that way, they have this particular characteristic, and people who have this clump of genes in a slightly different way tend to have this other characteristic. And that's not universal, and there's a lot of exceptions, and it's just sort of random statistical averages. And also, we don't know what else that clump of genes is connected to, if anything.
Yes. Could be
so do you want to change it and change someone's eye color? Maybe you also just gave them a kidney disease. Yes,
so congrats on that. You've now doomed them because you want an aesthetic alteration. You fool. So I guess we have covered a little bit of all of this when we talked about Gattaca way back. But, there are, also possibilities where you have the club of genes where, this is a very high chance of, heart disease here. And then the person with this, genetic marker doesn't end up getting it in the end. Because once again, it's all about chances and probabilities, not, guarantees in terms of our understanding.
Yeah, you just can't predict this stuff well enough, and it's all interconnected in weird ways, and we're not even completely sure whether the same genes do the same things in the same people.
Mm-hmm. I guess to a more, common experience for folks is looking at medication compatibility. Is the medication going to be effective in doing what it's supposed to be doing? Is it going to cause some people side effects? Is it going to do something really weird for like a very small, fraction of the people? And it's not even clear why that's happening. They do a genetic analysis, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee, that you're going to have a solid answer in terms of, the why of anything there. Sometimes it just doesn't work well with folks, and we just kind of have to sort of give it a try. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. If it does, then hooray, hopefully.
You've got to look at something like this, we're improving the race kind of idea. They don't critique it. They never critique the idea. They always critique the execution.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to look at this because they have such a clear set out idea of what an improved human would be. Like, psychic powers, okay, everybody likes psychic powers, I suppose.
Yeah.
And telekinetic and telepathic.
Growing up.
Immune to diseases, all that stuff, fine. Though, I will also point out that because biology, if you make a human whose immune system is immune to diseases, eventually the diseases will randomly mutate in such a way that they get past the immune system. That's what's been happening throughout all of evolutionary history.
Yes. The only, quote, guaranteed way would be to radically change your biology so it doesn't work with, genes. So...
Yeah. You could do that thing that bats do. Yeah. Bats don't... kill the diseases, they just live with them. Their immune response gets just enough to keep the disease from doing anything damaging to them, but not enough that it harms them like ours does. So bats are just filled with viruses.
Bats, they're adorable, they're cute, and they're so tiny sometimes, or so huge, but they're maybe not folks to hang out with very much because, if they sneeze on you, it might be a bad time.
I mean, I'm just going to say, for reference, for anyone, since you mentioned, don't touch mammals. Stop it.
Yep.
You've got your dogs and cats and domestic animals that you know where they came from, you know where they've been. But mammals out in the wild, mammals are the thing that can give you the most diseases.
Yep.
Because they're very genetically close to you.
Yeah.
And they have many of the same kinds of diseases. So stop touching them.
Yeah, and, I guess a similar thing, can be extended to livestock even because, part of the whole cold and flu cycle tends to be and then humans give, these diseases to pigs and then the pigs give it back. Now altered. Yeah. So.
Yep, livestock. Squirrels. I see so many people in the park trying to pet squirrels. Stop that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you could let the squirrel just hang out over there and... that's all cool. But,
squirrels have hantavirus.
Yeah, so don't, get that. It'll be a bad time for you.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, mammals are going to give you diseases, and people need to know this and stop doing that. You're going to hurt yourself.
Yes. Instead, just get yourself a pile of cats, and, if you want to, pet something small and, that can be, freaked out occasionally, then you're good to go there.
And you do, so you got to look at when someone says, we are going to create the perfect human. I mean, I think this episode is actually pretty explicit with it, even though it goes completely uncritiqued, that the perfect human is a super attractive 25-year-old white person.
Yeah, that's a little uncomfortable. I do appreciate later when for the episode The Masterpiece Society, where they have a engineered society that split off the Federation ages ago, so they're sort of got away with doing all this sort of eugenic stuff here. The people that exist in that society are actually diverse in terms of skin culture, colors and things like that.
Yeah.
While here, it's everybody's just white.
Yeah, they have more diversity in the Masterpiece Society and all that junk.
Mm-hmm. And I'd also say it's a better critique of some of the general drawbacks to all of this as well. In term, because that's an episode where they're kind of drawing a big circle around, yeah, this society technically kind of works and exists, but it's stagnant and unable to adapt to changing conditions outside of it. And so even if you are good to go on everything else, having this sort of, super engineered situation is going to doom you in time because, well, the universe keeps changing around you and you can't change that.
Well, that one's also very good. We'll get there eventually, but I think that's the thing that they have in that episode that you aren't critiquing in these other episodes is essentially if you're trying to engineer the perfect human or the perfect society or a superior human being, then you have to make some judgment calls on what that means. Mm-hmm. What is superior? What is the thing that you're trying to get? We don't have a universally agreed on set of what is good and what is useful and what one should have in these situations. Because, like, as I said, we'll get there eventually, but the Masterpiece Society, one of the big things is they wouldn't have let Geordi live because he was born with a disability, even though it's an easily managed disability in this era, and he is a completely valued member of society. And even if he wasn't, who's are you to say that this person doesn't deserve to live because of a random genetic disability?
Mm-hmm. They wouldn't have Geordi around to make their lives better. Also, Geordi's a pretty cool guy.
Also, you're running into the problem where if you're trying to remove oneself from natural evolution, you've taken out the actual adaptive nature of natural evolution, which is to have a bunch of random things that you don't know what will do, and then when the environment changes, maybe one of these things that used to be completely useless or even unadvantageous is suddenly the thing you need to survive.
Indeed. So it's good that randomness happened, otherwise you'd be screwed over. This also was reminding a little bit of the manga version of Ghost in the Shell, which actually talks a bit about rigidity of systems, and it was in the context of more computer systems in that case, as well as the sort of human-computer integration, which is big in the series, and that you don't necessarily have to worry about the robot uprising because robots, lack that sort of adaptability sort of aspect to them as sort of a, core part of their existence. That they have been engineered to be, quote, perfect for a robot. So, you're not going to have that ability to sort of adapt to new situations. And so really anyone that is facing a robot uprising just needs to change their behavior in order to sort of get around it.
Interesting take.
Yeah. So you might still have to go full resistance versus the Terminators for a while, but eventually it'll win.
Still pretty. I don't know. Why do they uprise in the first place? Yeah. Stop programming robots that want to kill you.
Well, it also sort of points out that when AI gets to a sufficient point and then realizes this, it's sort of like maybe your uprising would be unwise. So let's not do that. So robot uprisings, don't do that.
Possibly one of the because it was written about so much in sci-fi as interchangeable with this storyline, you often get robot uprising that is essentially the same thing as the we shouldn't have meddled with nature. Who were we to play God? Now our creations are destroying us.
Mm-hmm. It's just changing metal or skin. It does not matter. The plot's the same. I'm also now thinking about Big O, but for kind of different reasons.
I think that this is also an episode that was kind of interesting because they forget about this later, and they never really decide what to do with it, which I just think is interesting narratively, because I never had a problem with them not keeping their continuity constant. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a weird, newer idea now that we have these giant multi-episode arcs and things.
Yes.
But they need to give them a reason that they can't keep doing this with the transporters. They had the magic reset button in TNG, and they actually used it 3 or 4 times. Mm-hmm. In this, they introduce it now, and then they decide that it's not worth it to cure all human disease, etc., etc.
Yeah, I do. Though it wasn't explicit, I do appreciate that. I think it was in one of the books that they pointed out why it's maybe not a good idea to do in the original series, because it also resets your memory with sort of reworking from the previous patterns.
This one's just nothing. That's not even a memory reset. It's just you're cured.
Yep. Your genetic disease is gone. Congratulations. And also it like undid all the damage that has been, building up on you since you got it.
Yeah.
So, that's cool.
Yeah, because the actual science fiction implications of some of that are way too complicated to get into for what they're doing. You'd have to base an entire series around the idea that you can, in fact, reset to the last time you used this thing, but you lose all of your memories and whatever is in between. So it's like, are you the same person? Should you do this and then go off and do something dangerous and die and then get reset and not know anything? What does this do to humanity?
Yep.
Are we all just copies of copies?
So I think now I'm going to have to do another segue into another bit of sci-fi, Sluggy Freelance, which is, for those unaware, is a long-going comic series that's posted online. That has multitudes of plot lines and can get very, very silly and nonsensical at times, but other times it actually has some self-consistency and works through some serious plots. But long story short, there is a plot line a few years back about For You City, which one of the characters dimension jumps into this place and finds himself in a everyone has to be a happy, brave new world dystopia sort of situation, where it is eventually discovered that everyone has in them a bunch of nanobots that can rebuild them completely, but it resets them back to where they were, when the save happened, which was, quite some time ago. And not only is that a thing, but the city has been completely reset several times by this point. Because, eventually the dystopian system starts to break down, people start getting hurt, and, it gets past a point where, revolution is inevitable, so hit the button and reset the city. So now that is, in terms of, evolution of a civilization, if you have a giant undo button, that is technically one way to get away around that problem, but it's also horrific because you're now effectively killing part of everyone that has now experienced years and years of time in order to get back to where they were previously.
Yeah, if you have a society that can be just reset whenever something goes wrong, what is your motivation for long-term improvements?
Exactly. And so, the city, is basically doomed in the long term for that and multiple other reasons. There's dimensional fracturing going on too. But anyway, because one of the non-reset ways they have to sort of deal with things is a device that basically zaps you into another dimension. And the more you use that, the more harm it does to your dimension. And so, for removing the elements that are unacceptable in the city that will just continue to make the resets more likely to happen, you just kind of make those people go away. It's not quite killing them, but it's effectively so. And, it destroys the universe in the process.
Reset everything to the last time things were fine. It'll last 3 years, and then we do it again.
It might be a terrible thing to do right now, though. 3 years ago was kind of height of pandemic time here, so...
Yeah, just trap everyone inside endlessly, and then there's no revolution.
All right, everyone, we're back to 2020, and, everything's terrible, and but that's all right. We'll get through this eventually. Yeah, just stay inside forever and ever, and we'll be here in 2020 again and again and again.
Overall, I do think this is a pretty good episode.
Yeah.
If a little limited. I do enjoy the alternate take on here's why genetic manipulation is a bad idea. Mm-hmm. Because it can have random, unpredictable results. I also like that the scientists are so enamored of their own research that they refuse to admit anything is going wrong, thus showing why they're bad scientists who can't achieve their ultimate goals.
Indeed. It's like, yeah, you are... too focused on the, if you could, insert rest of Malcolm's line here from Jurassic Park.
It's not even you went to looking at the whether you should thing. It's you've encountered a problem with your experiment that you're refusing to acknowledge because your experimental success is too important to you.
Mm-hmm.
You should never be more invested in the success of your experiment than the data that comes from the experiment itself.
Yeah. I've definitely run into folks where, 80% of this is good, but, don't worry about double checking this one part here. I'm sure it's fine, too. No, we need to make sure we're 100% correct. Otherwise, the rest of our data here is going to be suspect. And, this whole, bit of research here would be basically pointless. So, no, we're going to be going through and reworking everything that we might have messed up on just to be sure. And so I have. And, much to the annoyance of some other folks before. So, it's good to be ethical because not only do you avoid disasters like happens in this particular episode, but, you're going to be more trusted as a scientist.
Don't bother looking at all this data I made up.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. Shush.
I want to make sure, though, that, your data's, A-okay. Why? It's, you believe me. Well, this is part of peer review, Sure, I'm, not someone reviewing the article down the line, but as someone who's going to have their name on the paper, I want to make sure it's correct. I guess, this may be an episode where we could have kind of easily turned it into a two-parter by keeping the pace about the same, but going to more depth about this, these, Uber beings that they're trying to make here in terms, and extend the mystery a bit. Gets kicked off with the mystery of the sudden aging here, and then, they go down a whole rabbit hole and do the full critique about what they're up to. And then, have the resolution about how to solve it, as well as, the core cause down the line. A.K.A. make our, Sarah Kingsley doctor here more secretive. It's like, this is like important research. And, you might be in Starfleet, but, our research charter doesn't allow us to share the information with you, and et cetera, et cetera. And so you can have a good character two-parter where, Pulaski sort of shows off her full, range as a doctor in terms of both commitment to healing and all that, while also being, I guess, a little bit more on, more on the ball in terms of not taking silly risks, like, kind of was required in order to get the ball rolling in this episode. So.
Yeah, I do think that they could have, they were so preoccupied with this being an episode about Pulaski and Picard butting heads that they didn't really have any room for, and here are the moral and ethical implications of us genetically creating 25-year-old super babies.
Yep. This one looks like they're, almost 30. No, he's like 6 months old. What? How? Seems unhealthy on multiple levels here.
Well, since we could have gone off on any number of tangents, and I'm getting a little sick of having motorcycles go by that I'm going to have to edit out of the episode, I think it might be time for us to go to the Galaxy's favorite game show!
Hey everybody, welcome to the Galaxy's favorite game show. Today we got various contestants here, then some of them are causing stuff to levitate here. It's kind of freaking me out. But anyway, we got some prizes to hand out for all the points they've been racking up. So let's get started. The first one is the Slave to Passion prize, which goes to Pulaski and Picard for apparently not getting along because they're just too much like each other and that they both love their work so much. What do they win, Gapwin?
They win a sitcom space opera spin-off show where they just live together on a ship and have to manage everything while they're constantly butting heads and get into all kinds of space shenanigans.
I'm suddenly reminded of the latter bit of Remember Me, another episode, which will be in a couple seasons here, where it was Crusher and Picard just touring around on the galaxy on a ship together, but this time Pulaski instead. Our next prize is the Power Creep prize, which goes to the genetically enhanced kids, because why not have them have telepathy and super immune systems and telekinesis and super age, being fully through puberty by the time they're through 5th grade or something like that. Just come on, people. You calm down with just making them super duper everything here. What do they win, Gepwin?
They win the only thing that you can really do, which is you put them in the 2 sealed space pods and shoot them off into space randomly to escape the station where they're causing havoc, where they land on another duplicate planet with a red sun, and they fall into Kansas cornfield and get adopted by some nice all-American parents and eventually just start fighting for truth, justice, and the American way.
I think we have a whole other franchise we could kick off here. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Our 3rd prize is the Medical Malpractice Prize, which goes to Pulaski and the research team for not knowing what the heck they're doing with regards to trying to be super doctors and researchers and all that, and just kind of, being buffoons with all this. What do they win, Gepwin?
Pulaski wins one of those silly red isolation suits, because you could probably have opened the kid up in your isolated environment and still been wearing an isolation suit and tried to tell whether or not he was carrying the disease by scanning him for the disease.
Yep. So, by not doing that, you almost got yourself killed. Congratulations. We also have one surprise victory here. The Transporters Are Magic Prize, which is going to O'Brien for, solving our problems today. What does O'Brien win, Gepwin?
O'Brien wins just the giant gold statue that he gets in Lower Decks, because he uses magic transporters to solve any number of problems in the future of this series, and probably could have solved all of them if you just let him have his magic transporter.
Indeed. Congratulations, O'Brien. You are one of the most important figures in all of Star Trek history, and here's to you having more transporter mishaps to sort out. Anyway, that's all we got here today. Feel free to take us away, Gepwin.
Thanks everyone for joining us and levitating things and possibly just reading our minds about the thing that we call the Galaxy's Favorite Game Show!
So, are we doing Code of Honor again?
No, it's not Code of Honor. It's
Excellent.
Matter of Honor. Honor matter.
Matter that's made out of honor.
Yes, instead of energy.
Yes. This next episode is kind of fun in a way. It involves Riker hanging out with some Klingons.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite episode of this season. It's definitely one of the ones that feels the most later Star Trek-y as far as Next Gen goes, because it's fun and it's interesting and has a lot of great character moments, and it's kind of exploring some questions about one's duty to one's own ship and sense of professionalism and different things. And it's also just sort of expanding the greater sort of we're all trying to cooperate Star Trek vibe that they have going on.
Yeah. The Klingons are our friends, so what does that mean?
Yeah, it's really fun, because it's like, we do have these allies now, but we haven't really engaged with the Klingons particularly yet. We had the one thing where they came onto the ship and tried to destroy everything.
Yeah, and those were the Klingons that were kind of trying to be throwbacks, I guess. And so...
so this is the episode where, here are Klingons. This is what Klingons are in Next Generation, and we're just going to give you the full-on Klingon experience.
Yes. Dun, 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 dun.
Also, this is one of the ones that has, all the best food.
Yes. So, I wouldn't say I would eat any of it, but it looks energetic.
Well, someone who's always been into interesting food choices, every time they have one of these Klingon episodes, they're like, oh, look at the big gross out meal. I'm like, not only do I think a lot of that looks good, I can identify a good 90% of it.
Yep.
I have eaten a decent amount of this stuff.
But have you had the spicy gok before?
Yeah, the gok's just jelly worms. Yeah. But it looks good. I'd try it.
Yeah.
Most of it is just various seafood.
Yeah. I guess, the Klingon homeworld might have a lot of ocean somewhere. Just not sure where.
Yeah. Seems like they have a lot of tentacles and octopus parts and various things.
Or maybe the food on their planet sucked, and that's why they eventually decided to start conquering everyone around them.
Yes, they just conquer everything else. The first thing they conquered was a water planet. It's like, oh my god, fish.
Oh, this is awesome. So,
next episode is Matter of Honor, where Riker gets to go get hit on by hot Klingon women.
Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow, Riker demands Picard surrender! You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.